Are coming from the University of Nairobi that has just been closed indefinitely following an overnight student situation there. There was unrest there at the University of Nairobi. The students have been asked to vacate their halls of residence within hours. As you can see, offices, lecture halls there in a bit of a state. The students are reacting or following last week's alleged police brutality, and as you can see there, that is the situation. The Senate has asked the students to vacate the school's premises immediately, and therefore we understand that the University of Nairobi will remain closed until further notice. Those pictures are coming to you from the University of Nairobi. We will be talking to Hassan Mugambi very shortly just to get a scope of what's happening there. And on the political scene, the poll agency is set to meet presidential candidates or their agents later today. This is a follow-up to last week's stalemate. Will they unlock this particular situation? Also, the European Union Observer Mission Group is calling on the political actors to demonstrate commitment to democratic competition and institutions, even as public hearings on proposed amendments of electoral laws begin this morning. Good morning and welcome to this edition of Citizen Extra. I am Lillian Muli and we are live across the country to bring you news and events that will be shaping the day. We will be talking to Nyeri in Martin Munene. In Mombasa, Aisha Bikidusa will be talking to us, and in Kisumu County, Laura Achieng will be joining us. We're also talking to John Wanyama, who is in Eldoret, Western Gishu County, and will also be crossing live to Las Vegas in the United States, where the shocking shooting took place Sunday night and has so far left 59 people dead and over 500 injured. Our man on the ground here in Nairobi County is Hassan Mugambi, who is on standby at the University of Nairobi. News, of course, broke last week of police brutality. GSU officers are said to have invaded the campuses, hostels, and indeed lecture halls as they flashed out protesting students from the streets of Nairobi. The students were protesting over the arrest of Babu Owino, that's the Embakasi East Member of Parliament. And after that, videos emerged of police officers brutalizing civilians believed to be students of the University of Nairobi. We are going live now to the University of Nairobi for a phone link with Hassan Mugambi. Hassan Mugambi, we understand that the University of Nairobi has just been closed following last night's protest. What can you tell us is happening there as of now?
Oh, thank you very much, Lillian. Back in the studio, we are coming to you here from the University of Nairobi. We are the main administration block where actually the Senate has just made that piece of announcement that the students should keep off this particular institution indefinitely. Right now it is confusion here because both of the students, especially those that were coming from home, do not know exactly that particular decision has been reached, and they are just coming here to find out that they have been given up to 1 p.m. to vacate the institution, and it will remain closed until such a time that the University Senate comes up with that particular information, or rather a piece of information that to reopen it once again. And this is a decision that is said to have been reached after a high-level meeting bringing together the top police command in Nairobi as well as the University Senate. And it was decided that due to the unrest that was actually witnessed in this particular institution earlier on, it was decided that it would be fit for the university to remain closed after the Inspector General had a meeting with the University Senate. Intelligence having it that there could be it could be that some of the political politicians in the country were planning to use the university students in their demonstrations, so to speak. It has also been closed in time for to avoid unrest in the planned demonstrations that was there. The Nairobi University Students Organization had also planned demonstrations tomorrow in regards to the alleged police brutality that was committed on the students last week when they were protesting the fact that not the fact rather, but the allegations that they were beaten up by members of the anti-riot police unit as they demonstrated against the arrest of Babu Owino last week. That is the kind of situation here. We are seeing students pulling their bags, those that maybe are not from Nairobi. They're pulling their bags, wheeling their bags in the tarmac, just vacating the hostels, as well as those that are carrying their backpacks, just standing in confusion of whether or not to go home. They are waiting to maybe get the information very, very clearly. Some of them in disbelief that they have actually signed up for classes, but they are being told to go back home. This despite the assurance from the Vice Chancellor yesterday that the institution will remain in operation despite the unrest that has been witnessed. So that is the kind of situation here, Lillian, and we'll be getting you live pictures from this particular institution in a very, very short while.
And thanks for that, Hassan Mugambi. We'll be talking to you again in the course of the hour. Those are live pictures from the University of Nairobi, where the University's Senate has directed that students pack up and vacate the school's premises as of now. This is following incidents of protests from the school fraternity following the arrest of Babu Owino. This started last week, Thursday, after which videos emerged showing GSU officers brutalizing civilians that are believed to be students at the University of Nairobi. They are said to have invaded the school's hostels and indeed the lecture halls, and therefore we'll be keeping an eye on what's going on at the University of Nairobi. Last night, the students took to the streets once again to protest. This once again a follow-up to what is believed to have been police brutality. The school senate, the University Senate, has advised that the University of Nairobi students vacate the school with immediate effect. And that is the latest from University of Nairobi. Let's cross over now to Kisumu County. We understand that the poll agency IEBC is set to meet presidential candidates or their agents later today. Also, the Parliament's Select Committee on proposed changes to the electoral laws is expected to begin public hearings today amid criticism of the amendments. Laura Cheng is in Kisumu County. Laura, yesterday I saw you take cover as NASA supporters in Kisumu took to the streets in support of NASA over calls for some IEBC officials to be ejected from office. What's the state of affairs today, and indeed what are they saying as regards the amendments to the electoral laws and indeed the fact that the IEBC is set to meet presidential candidates today?
Thank you very much. Good morning to you, Lillian. And maybe first of all, I could tell you that we are actually breathing some fresh air here in Kisumu County compared to what the situation was yesterday. And where we are at right now is the Central Business District, where here there was some sort of unrest all through the day yesterday. And maybe if I could show you some of the pictures here, some youth had put up a roadblock using stones in this area, and maybe if you can see there, those are the pictures that some cleanup is ongoing. They're trying to basically remove the stones from that area. Now the youth had placed stones all over this place, now just trying to they had disrupted traffic at all. Every vehicle that was coming through this road was basically being diverted, or rather told to turn around and go back. We saw police trying to come to this place and try to disperse the youth, but they were too adamant. They kept on staying in this area, basically just blocking and paralyzing business across the Central Business District. But right now, at least some state of normalcy has returned. We can see businesses are open in this area. People are going about their normal businesses. It's basically a typical Tuesday morning here in Kisumu County. As you can see, shops are open. People are moving up and down. At least there's no tension as it was yesterday. It's almost impossible, of course, except for the stones that are all over the road. You cannot tell that there was some action here yesterday, Lillian. And What we understand also is that yesterday some leaders in this area, among them the Deputy Governor and Kisumu Central Member of Parliament Fred Ouda, Nyando MP Jared Okello, and among other leaders, including also the Senator of this county, Mr. Outa, called a press conference where they said that they will not relent and they will not push back until their demands are met. Now, you know, there's that stalemate between IEBC, the Jubilee side, and NASA, each of them having a set of conditions for the repeat presidential poll. And now the envoy is also coming in to advise and saying that of course, giving directives on what should be done during the August 8th polls. And now maybe, Lillian, if I could show you, this is a business lady. She was not here yesterday. Maybe she could tell us, habari maze. Tafadhali njoo hapa utueleze. Leo umerudi kwa biashara, unategemea hali itakuwaje ikifika Friday? Ikifika Friday, sasa umefungua biashara, jana huko hapa, unategemea hali itakuwaje kufikia Friday?
I don't know how it will be, because yesterday it wasn't all that way. Yesterday it was just the way they saw it, and I don't know how private they will be. So the IEBC should do something for the reform. That's what I have.
Well, yes, Lillian, this is a business lady. She was not here. As I told you earlier, this was basically almost a ghost street. There was no business whatsoever going on, no traffic, nothing at all, just angry youth engaging the police in running battles. But right now, at least, she's here with business. Not really sure of what she wants per se, but of course, you're all waiting to see what will be happening on Friday. This area being considered one of NASA's forte. Of course, Raila Odinga's word is taken very seriously, and with 80% appearance during the August 8th polls, it will be interesting to see what will be happening on Friday, with a promise pushed by local leaders that they will not relent until the demands being pushed forth by NASA are met. And that's basically what's going on, or rather what the situation is here at the Central Business District in Kisumu County. Lillian.
That's Laura Acheng in Kisumu County. Business as usual there. Yesterday was a bit of a different day there. She had to take cover as supporters of NASA took to the streets in support of their calls for IEBC reforms. We're now crossing over to Uasin Gishu County, where John Wanyama is also on standby. Let's take a look at what's happening in that part of the country. John.
Good morning, Lillian, and here in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County, unlike what we are witnessing in Kisumu, as Laura has informed us, here in Eldoret and the entire of North Rift, we are witnessing calm, and people are going on with their businesses. No sign of demonstration here or there. So, Lillian, here everything is cool, and residents are going on with their businesses as usual. With me this morning, Lillian, I'm with the PS for Water, Professor Fred Sigor, whom we want to talk to tell us maybe how has this also prolonged elections, if they have affected their ministry. And as you can understand, the country now is also suffering from a major drought. So we would like to talk to him and give us maybe to paint for us how is this situation and how are they affected. Prof, my first question to you, do you think this election, maybe the repeat of this election has affected you so much as a ministry, and how are you planning maybe to solve drought issues with these elections going on?
As you are aware, last week the Treasury or the government approved the money to go towards election. In addition, also the drought situation was also given a priority, and therefore the funds have been set aside to mitigate the drought which is existing. And as in the Ministry of Water, just like other years, they are proposed to give us money so that we use it not only to repair boreholes which are existing, but also to drill new ones. And in addition, and of which is very important, is the fact that the money will be used to take water to wananchi in the affected areas. In the country at the moment, the most affected counties include Marsabit, Isiolo, Kajiado, Karisa, Wajir, amongst the other ASAL counties. and therefore as a government we prioritized the issue of using water posers so that we take to the affected wananchi and also to assist the livestock keepers in ensuring that their livestock is given water through water tracking. And therefore, as a ministry, as much as we have election, the government has also prioritized funds to go towards mitigation of the drought.
We understand that the Parliament is starting their public participation today with maybe inviting Kenyans to come in to give their views. What is your word to these Kenyans to come in and participate in this?
I think, like in the Constitution, it's expected that if somebody has an issue and there is an organ which has been given a mandate to hear such views, then I will expect that somebody who has pertinent issues concerning the same should forward. Otherwise, I think when it comes to political issues, Parliament MPs are there and we expect them also to carry out their work. Us in the water sector, we want to see what we can do to ensure that people are accessing water, and therefore, as far as water is concerned, we are at the forefront to ensure that we contain the drought. In addition, we also have long-term plans to ensure that in future issues of drought will be a thing of the past, by ensuring that we plan for it well in terms of construction of storage facilities in the country.
My last question to you, Professor. You are in the government. Do you think this election will be held on 26th of October?
IEBC has said so, so I believe. Of course, IEBC has given a date, and as a voter and a citizen and a government official, it's my expectation that the election will take place on 26th, as we've been given, as we've been informed. Yeah. Thank you very much. That Lillian, that is Professor Sigor, Professor for PS for Water, and as you have clearly heard him, is that he is ready to go for this election, and that also goes a long way with the residents here in UoN Closed, who are saying that they are very ready for this election, and they feel like they are just wasting time for waiting until October 26th. I wish the IEBC could give them today to go for this election. So Lillian, we are still following up with these stories and many other in this county and the entire region, North Rift, so that we can inform you and our viewer wherever you are as when and how it happens. Lillian.
Thanks for that. That's John Wanyama talking to us in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County. The situation there pretty calm, but then talks of a drought also dominating a lot of farmers' concerns there as they talk about this electioneering period not doing much to help that current situation. We are now going to be talking to Hassan Mugambi very shortly. As I earlier told you, the University of Nairobi has been closed indefinitely following overnight students' unrest. The students have been asked to leave their halls of residence and indeed not to attend classes, and that is the current state of affairs there. Hassan Mugambi is our man on the ground. Let's cross over to him and find out what's happening there now.
Well, thank you very much, Lillian. It is some sort of an exodus here at the University of Nairobi. We are currently along the University Way, and as you can see right behind me, they're just students wheeling their bags, and I'm going to try and speak to some of them and to just get their feeling on the closure of this particular institution, because it was closed down following a decision that was made by the Senate this morning after the destruction of the SWA offices, SWA standing for Students Welfare Authority, at one of the halls where they sleep here in the University of Nairobi, and we will be just drawing nearer to them. Let me just backtrack to go near them so that they can give us a few of what they think about the the closure of the institution. Fujambo, could you kindly speak to me? This is Citizen TV. We're live on Citizen Extra, and I wanted to get first of all your name and your feeling, your reaction to the closure of the institution.
Okay, man, I just said that this is what do we call it? A disgrace, considering it could have been third year 3.2, but now I've finished even the first semester of the third year. So this is indeed hectic, and I don't know if you can move on like this, but I can say there's something wrong, seriously wrong now.
So you're not in support. Are you in support for the decision that was made to close down the institution?
Actually, even I just don't feel anything now. It's just that I'm tired, or just even not the feeling. I just want to go home and see the way forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Lillian, that is the kind of feeling that the students have here. They're just saying that they are actually tired of this kind of thing. And I will be speaking to some of them. Jambo, speak to us. This is Citizen TV. We're live on Citizen Extra. First of all, give us your name.
Derek.
Derek?
Yeah, Derek Munene.
Derek Munene, what is your feeling towards the closure of the institution?
I'm not very happy because it's after a month after I joined this university, and I'm not pleased with this their opinion to close up our university.
They say that the decision was made for the purposes of your own security, because of the planned demonstrations. They were trying to avert the planned demonstration as well as the destruction of the SWA offices. Are you in support of that particular decision? Do you feel the decision was made because of your own security?
It might be because of my own security, but I think they would have looked for a better solution than this. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Munene. Well, that is a student there called Munene. He is a first-year student here at the University of Nairobi, just trying to express displeasure in as far as the decision is concerned, saying that he just joined. He's 3 months old in the institution, and what meets his eye is that a closure of the institution prematurely here at the University of Nairobi. But all in all, it is that particular kind of the feeling that we are having, they are having here, the students. But then again, we have not yet found one student that is not in support. We have found one that is not in support, and we have found another that is not in support. We have not found any student who is in support of the closure of this particular institution. But then again, as we were speaking to some of the sources privy to the meeting that was held prior to this particular decision, is that they are saying that there was a meeting between the University Senate and the top police commanders here in Nairobi, and what was the decision was made after that particular structure at the Hall 9 of the institution was actually raised down. That is the fire that was started at the Students' Welfare Authority. This is the office that is tasked with just getting the students into different accommodation rooms, and different allocating them the kind of hostels that they will be using in their stay in those particular hostel areas where there was a demonstration last week, and allegations of excessive force came about, where the anti-riot police officers have been actually blamed of using excessive force on the students, leading to the call of the demonstrations that were supposed to be taking place tomorrow here at the University of Nairobi. But then again, some of the reasons that they have given, also the authorities have given for that particular closure of the school, is that to get the students away, because they are actually being used, so to speak. There was a fear of being used by politicians in the demonstrations that have been called in this particular city and other cities across the country. So the University of Nairobi stands closed, and the students are just in their way home. And some of those students we spoke to earlier on are those that come from their homes to get to the institution. They met this particular news with so much confusion. They came here so they can attend classes, but then again they have been told by 1 p.m. today they are not supposed to be in this particular institution, and they will only come back after communication has been made from the University Senate. Lillian.
Hassan, just going back to last night, we know that the students also protested last night. Kindly bring us up to speed with what exactly they were complaining about, what is it that they're unhappy about, and what do they want addressed? What issues are they calling to be addressed?
Well, one of the major issues that the students who were in protest yesterday were complaining about was the alleged brutality that was meted on them when they held demonstrations against the detention and subsequent arraignment of the Embakasi East Member of Parliament Babu Owino, who also once chaired the Nairobi University Students Organization, SONU, and then also they were making a lot of noise, so to speak, against their own Vice Chancellor, saying that he was there when the violence was meted out against the students, and he seemed not to have defended them, so to speak. But then again, they went to an extent of burning down that particular structure, the offices that hold the Students Welfare Organization, Students Welfare Authority, and that in itself was the reason as to why the Senate actually came to a decision of closing down the university up to until when they will be coming out again and declaring it open after the temperatures have gone down.
And thanks for that. That's Hassan Mugambi at the University of Nairobi. We brought you pictures there of students leaving. They've been asked to leave the campus with immediate effect. The campus will remain closed indefinitely, and this is following students' protests which started last week Thursday after the arrest of Embakasi East Member of Parliament Babu Owino. Last night, once again, they took to the streets to protest the school's administration's nonchalance towards them and their plight following alleged police brutality. We're staying with that story. The University Senate has chosen to close the campus indefinitely. My guest in studio this morning on Citizen Extra, I'm joined by Mary Mwangi. She's a political analyst. Thanks for being with us. And we're also joined by Peter Mathoki, who's a former IALA member of Parliament. Good morning. Let's begin with the situation we're seeing at the University of Nairobi. Mary, looking at the political climate right now and looking at the culture of protest, we know that NASA has called for protests. We saw their supporters take to the streets yesterday. We're expecting the same on Friday. And now we see University of Nairobi students having to go home following these protests over a politician. These students were protesting over Babu Owino. Some of them innocent, have sustained injuries, some of them who are not even on the streets. The culture of protest, the political climate in the country right now, and what image this is sending?
Well, this is very clearly a reflection of our society right now. We are all going through election fatigue. We're very uncomfortable with the ambiguity in the situation leading to our next election in August, on the 26th. However, this is also a reflection of what happened 20 years ago in the 90s, where you saw multi-party politics pushing for changes and the university students were involved. Those who were in university then can clearly remember the number of times they had to go home, even times as much as a whole year. However, one needs to understand right now as a student that what they're doing is not business as usual. They're going to affect their lives. Human resource managers will look at their CVs and see that alumnus and say no. And they need to sit down with the University Senate and find a way to address their issues. Because internationally, there is student representation, and students have structures that allow for them to agitate for their needs and to push policy that is affiliated to their needs. But right now, we're seeing a lot of political interference in student body politics. I mean, there was a study done a couple of years ago as to how much money gets used in their election process. Students are paid off to ensure that they vote in a certain leader. And that's not the kind of politics we want to see our young children going through. A couple of years ago, I think it was 1998, a young man was killed from USIU on his way home in the evening. He was driving his father's car and the police killed him. And we saw the entire USIU student body and management come together peacefully protesting the killing of this young man. I believe his name was nickname was Jordan Odhiambo.
Yes.
And this young man's, where he passed is where they laid a wreath to commemorate him, and then they peacefully walked back to university. So what we're asking for on both sides, police force now needs to be utumishi kwa wote service. Cordon off the university if you must, but don't go into the hostels and attack children. And for the young students, understand that there are people who have to go on with their lives. We cannot allow for our streets to be blocked. We cannot allow for people to get hurt.
Right. And to you, Peter, is the political climate having a trickle-down effect to institutions of higher learning where you see students take to the streets to protest, and yet they should be in class ideally, and they're not protesting? When this all started, they were not protesting over any grievances towards the administration. They were protesting over the arrest of Babu Owino.
Thank you very much, Lillian. First, I would say it's very unfortunate. My own daughter is a victim of this. She is a student at the University of Nairobi. But what I can say is that democracy is very expensive, and that is for a fact. And it's very unfortunate the country is going into this. What used to happen in early 1980s and stuff is because of what could be happening. You've seen what has been happening the whole of after elections and stuff. What I think needs to be done. I don't think it's about Babu Owino. I don't think that should be the issue. The issue is that look at the bigger picture. What are the issues? Things are not happening right. IEBC seems to have done some mistakes. They're not ready to listen to other parties that are involved into this. And I think those are realities we need to talk through. I can tell you by the students of the university going around on streets, it's not about these are some of the issues that are coming out. They're feeling that the issues that are not properly addressed. The country belongs to them. The future of this country belongs to these people. And if leaders don't see it and indeed agree to address some of these issues, it could be very unfortunate. So I think, yeah, it's within their right. Again, the Vice Chancellor himself taken a bit of time to address some of the issues they're facing. But you could even see from the statement that he released yesterday that indeed, to me, it's either it was given by police to read it as it were, or something. It was not really coming out from him. So I would say,
if in fact there was police brutality towards these children, these students, who should take responsibility? The GSU officers were acting under command, and therefore, really, at the end of the day, there is videos that are going viral, but at the end of the day, they were acting under command from somebody.
But what is the role of the administration? What was the Vice Chancellor actually doing to all this? Why would he, in the first place, even allow that to happen? So I think responsibility again is to the Vice Chancellor, to the administration of the institution. Those are some of the things they are saying. Why is the Vice Chancellor not even protecting the students? It is a responsibility to ensure that, of course, the students at school, yourself as a parent, you are here, your child is at school, you expect the child to be protected. And again, you are told to come for the kid. So I think, again, the responsibility of the school administration, and that is for sure. Again, I could even see the police boss the other time talking to the media. He didn't even care. He doesn't want to be remorseful to what is happening, honestly. Why would the police go into a class to harass students? For what purpose? What business do they have in class? Why would they want to go? My own daughter told me, in fact, some of the students were raped. And this is not coming out. And this is what the students are going through. And you expect them just to keep quiet and swallow into this? It's not possible. So this is where we are. So until now the leaders indeed come together and discuss the issues facing this country, it will not be very easy. Don't look at the strike as just an isolated situation. They may close today. Another university may start tomorrow. Are you going to close the entire, so
we're seeing with the University of Nairobi story, that's a developing story. Hassan Mugambi is on the ground. Let's talk about today's planned meeting. The IEBC set to meet presidential candidates today. We do know that election laws have sharply divided the two main coalitions in the country, even as this meeting is set to happen. Previously, NASA principals have walked out of these talks. They have headline positions. They are calling for reforms within the IEBC. Jubilee, on the other hand, also has some concerns surrounding the IEBC. But let's begin with what you expect to come out of today's meeting. 22 days to the polls, with these headline positions and NASA actually threatening not to participate in the election.
Well, I must agree with the international community that Kenya is bigger than the two principles. That they must find common ground, put Kenya first, because we cannot continue the way we are. The economy is suffering. We are asking for changes in the constitutional laws prior to an election in a couple of days. These are not best practices. This cannot be done. And then you look on the other side where they are adamant that the IEBC has to be reconstituted for them to participate. Again, we don't have enough time. What are we going to do as a nation in crisis? The images we are seeing on our televisions is constant war and constant arguments from both sides, individuals taking to the streets, our students as well. This is not a good image for us internationally. And so we hope that the two sides will be able to reach some common ground where they can agree to have the election on the 26th of October. That is what Kenyans want.
Peter, do you see the two sides reaching common ground today? We know that, like Mary here says the envoys have called for international best practices. They are totally against these electoral law amendments. But then again, Jubilee pushing for this. And NASA, on the other hand, still remaining with their headline position that the IEBC must be reformed.
First and foremost, why would you want to amend laws few days to an election? That reads bad faith. When you're making law, you imagine that those laws will be in the hands of somebody who could be your worst enemy. What will happen in that? So in the first place, I would say that what Parliament is doing, I don't say Parliament, a section of members of Parliament are doing is wrong. I will tell you this for free. When you talk of good governance, we are saying some of the things should be done above board. And I can tell you what is happening is wrong. NASA has given their condition and said, please, if we are talking of free and fair elections, then it is only fair that we address some of these issues. IEBC says no, and Jubilee seems to be supporting this. If I was Jubilee, I would say this. If indeed it is IEBC that made me lose the presidential seat, for example, why would you want to support them? Why would you want to support IEBC? The same IEBC mismanaged the entire process. Why would you want the same team or group of people to handle elections? If indeed they're independent, if I were them, I would say, let me listen to what all the parties are saying and talk to the issue that they're raising and address them. Not the issue of simply saying, no, we'll not do these, and it becomes actually issues that are not even there. For example, you come and say, I don't want this printer, it's biased. Why can't we somebody else? What's so difficult in saying this? Again, if now we were given 60 days, which I think the last day should be either the 2nd or 1st of November, what is it that is so big on the 26th? Is it because it's a birthday of one of the candidates in this particular case? And these are some of the things we need to talk to, I'm telling you, and it's about public confidence.
Do you think, and talking about public confidence, Mary, do you think that today's public hearings on the electoral laws, amendments to the electoral laws, will instill public confidence in what Jubilee is pushing for? Because pundits are reading mischief into Jubilee's push to amend these electoral laws. But do you think that this might be a way forward in terms of instilling public confidence?
Well, one must understand why Jubilee wants these amendments. What Jubilee is arguing is that the ruling was based on very vague issues such as processes. So they want that addressed so that it is extremely clear what is what and what is not insofar as the electoral laws are concerned. Furthermore, they want to ensure that if we come to a situation where again there's a petition lodged at the Supreme Court, that the rulings will not be based on processes. So that's where they are coming from. So on the other side, NASA is arguing certain issues were not addressed. For instance, the allegation of the hacking, the allegation that the forms that were presented to the IEBC at the National Tallying Center were flawed. So what the IEBC needs to do is clearly state what they're going to do insofar as those issues are concerned. For instance, we're made to understand that they have a 2-year contract with OT Mofo. So they are stuck with, I don't think it's OT Mofo, sorry, I think it's the printers, yes. Algorer. So they're stuck with that printer. There is nothing they can do. So they must ensure that there is clear quality assurance where that is concerned. Where the IT issue is concerned, where manipulation of results, the algorithm is concerned, they need to ensure that they have international observers there to make sure no manipulation will occur, that either side will also have access to the servers in a manner that will allow for no manipulation, in a manner that will allow for transparency. I do not feel that the IEBC is being very clear insofar as these issues are concerned.
The IEBC is not being very clear, Peter, according to Mary, and the chair himself says the proposed changes to the election laws is uncalled for. The IEBC is totally against this, and now they're getting the backing from the international community. But then again, we see these two sides of the political divide still having different points of view as regards this electoral process, which is 22 days away.
NASA is not supporting those kind of changes. That's the first thing, and I'm happy to know that IEBC is also not, because first and foremost they say that any of the commissioners can declare results. What does the national constitution say about this? It says it is the responsibility of the chair to do that, and therefore when you come and make a law that again it takes away those powers from the chair, what does that tell you about the law? It is null and void. Number two, when you are saying that indeed you want to make these laws for a specific election, then again, what do you read from that? And that's what we are saying is about the public confidence. That is, and we want to take this country back to the 1980s. And that's what we are saying. It's not about an election. It's about this country. It's about good governance. It's one day, Lillian, for people to say, what role did you play in this country to make sure that you made Kenya what it is today? It's not about who becomes what, but to some people they are taking is a do or die to become a president. What we have said is that if there are no reforms at the IEBC, there will be no election. Take that to the bank. So it's not about even that.
Which is also a question that a lot of people ask. What do you mean there will be no election? Jubilee intends to go to the polls.
And that's why they are changing the laws to say that if one of the candidates don't participate, then the other one is declared the president also will be sworn in. What does that tell you, Lillian?
What's your reaction to that, Mary?
This is it's very up in the air right now, because we also have NASA on the other side saying they will not participate, and they will use a clause in the Constitution that points out that all 290 constituencies must participate in the electoral process. Now the question is, was that clause put in there to ensure that all the constituencies take place, or was it put in there for the argument that NASA is bringing forward? So there's a lot of confusion where this is concerned, a lot of ambiguity, and it's not good for the country. The international community is worried. We have international investors watching and seeing what's happening. We have tourists who are cancelling their bookings. Our economy is going to suffer. I feel that both sides need to come to an agreement. Our president needs to become the president of the nation of Kenya and send a message that is very clear that we must find a solution.
And echoing what Mary has said, the business community has actually warned that the economy is in danger of total decline and urged politicians to strike a quick deal to end the stalemate over the repeat election. That's a conversation we'll be having later. We're joined in studio by Jude Jomo now, who's the Kiambu Town Member of Parliament. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. Let's talk about the National Assembly, which is currently, and I'll begin with you, Jude. The National Assembly is currently on an 11-day break and will resume sittings for 3 days from the 10th of October, meaning if at all they'll be discussing these electoral amendments, the House will have just 4 sittings to take the bills through the second and third readings. We're talking about timelines again. We're looking at reactions from the IEBC who say this is totally uncalled for. Also reactions from the international community who are saying international best practices advise that this would not be the way forward.
Oh, thank you. First and foremost, thank you for having me this morning. Every bill that goes through Parliament requires a first reading, which these electoral laws reforms have already gone through a first reading. The second reading, the bill will be debated for 3 hours. So 4 days are more than enough, because 3 hours will be enough. Then the bill will be subjected now to a third reading, where all the changes that need to be done will be introduced. I've also listened to what the envoys are saying about introducing changes very close to elections. And I may agree with them that it is not the best practice, international practice. But the international practice is for normal circumstances. And we are not in normal circumstances. We have a situation where there are some people who would like to sabotage this election. There are some people who would not like to see this election happen. And one of
by that you mean NASA?
NASA, yes. NASA have said that if there are no reforms, there will be no elections. Now, the double speak in NASA is amazing, because they say no reforms, no elections. We are introducing reforms that will ensure that these elections are held in transparent and clear manner, a very fair way. Because some of the reforms, some of the changes that are being introduced by law are to ensure that rigging cannot happen. If you remember, IEBC came up the other day and said they have done some changes, they have reconfigured their kits, such that, and you know very well that when all the tallying has been done in a polling station, every agent signs the form. Then they take that information that is in the form and it is fed into the kit. And before this kit transmits, every agent looks at the kit and agrees that what is in that kit is what is in the form that he have signed. But before, and this is what they have introduced now, before these results are transmitted, that form has to be scanned and it is sent together with the results. What does this mean? That the doctors who were laying on the way, waiting to change what has been written on the form, can no longer do it, because the original copy has already had a scan and is sent to the headquarters. These are some of the changes that are being introduced to ensure that even if the system does not work electronically, if a certain computer fails somewhere, even if somebody tries to hack the system, we have the original material already sent to
You've been accused as Jubilee of blackmailing Kenyans into believing, and this is a reaction that's coming in, that the amendments to the Election Act are aimed at improving the country's electoral process, yet the amendments are actually geared towards suiting your political interests.
No, that is neither here nor there. The amendments that have been introduced, and sometimes I find it laughable when I hear NASA saying that the changes should not be done, electoral changes should not be done, or laws should not be changed close to the election. And it is the same NASA who went to court a week before elections, in the elections that we had on 8th. And they wanted the court to declare that if the electronic system does not work, then the general election is declared null and void. They are the same people who wanted to bring some changes a week to elections. And here they are now crying foul when we want to do some changes that will ensure that the will of people, the will of Wanjiku, is what is going to be announced at the end of the 2023
what's the reaction to what Jude is saying? He's talking of double speak from NASA.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I appreciate my group brother appreciating that indeed, in line with international standards, it is not right to change laws when we have a few days to elections. And I'm sure some of these things should not be done for a specific situation, but for posterity. And if we are talking about future of this country, then it is only fair when you are making those kind of laws and you are saying you want, those are not reforms. I think it's a few, and you remember members of NASA, members of parliament from NASA, never participated. They walked out. They walked away from this. That is to say that they don't want to be part of this, because they could even see some of these amendments are done in bad faith. And that is why we are saying it is only fair that if leaders could sober up, come together, think together for the future of this country. Today, it is Jubilee or NASA in this kind of a situation. Tomorrow, it could be vice versa.
But you're calling for reforms, and talking about NASA, is this how reforms are given back to? We're talking about your principles walking out of IEBC dialogue with the other side of the political divide. We're talking about street protests. If truly you're calling for reforms, is this how reforms are given back to?
And the reforms we kept on talking about, Lillian, is some minimum standards that we gave to the IEBC and said, if we are talking, it's not about an election, it's about free, fair and credible election that would stand the test of now and in the future. And that's what we are saying. If then IEBC could look through the issue that NASA has raised and say, yeah, these are some of the issues, this is possible, this you cannot do. But again, when now some members of parliament who go to parliament would want to adjust the process, take the whole some of these, change some laws, then again that is, I don't know how to call it.
Brilliant, if you remember, they started agitating for these changes even before the Supreme Court gave its ruling. because they had specific people in IEBC who were an obstacle in the course that they wanted to take. For example, Ezra Chiroba is the guy they want to remove. They don't tell us exactly what Ezra Chiroba has done. And if you remember, when we got the report from the data from the server, there were several attempts that were made to hack into the system. And I am sure it is the security that was put around the hacking of the system that they are not happy about. They would like to hack into that system. They would like to make changes from their own end, but this is not possible. And they would like to have people who are becoming an obstacle to them removed. Now that they can be able to have
Mary, let's get Mary on this. One moment. In the court of public opinion, both sides may have a point. However, they're not articulating their points in a manner that puts Kenya first. What we're seeing on the side of NASA is, if we don't win, then there's a flawed election. On the other side of Jubilee, they're saying we must do this, otherwise we will end up in the same situation we ended up in post the 8th of August. So what I need from both sides is that NASA principals come forward and explain why they want these basic irreducible minimums, and not just tell us we're removing so and so. There needs to be proof, there needs to be reason why. On the side of Jubilee, we need to hear, why do we need to make these changes? Honorable Jude did explain a couple of things that made sense. You pointed out that if we remove the clause that states that only the chairperson can declare the results, then we end up with a problem. Explain why that problem exists. We need to understand as Kenyans why these changes will hurt us or why they will benefit us.
I would like maybe to answer you in a very few words, saying like when they want to change the law so that it's not only the chairman who can announce, is that we should no longer rely on individuals to perform national tasks. We should rely on institutions. So if we put it that it is only the chairman, what will happen if the chairman will be incapacitated that day? What will happen if the chairman will not be willing, for one or that other reason, to do that? So we must put in place a system that will ensure that if one individual is unable to do this, then that organization will be able to have a system in which to do it. Because the chairman is mortal.
I want to ask you one thing. What takes precedence? Is it the Constitution or is it the Act? And because the Constitution is very clear on who is supposed to undertake some of these responsibilities, and that is vested with the chair of the Electoral Commission. So when you make a law that is not in tandem with the Constitution, what are you doing? And that is a problem. And that's why we are saying there's a problem. Number two, when we are talking of the minimums and the reforms, we are saying why some of the things we are even requesting. And can I tell you, Lillian, even some of the things that are raised by Parliament, they are saying now we could even rely more on the manual. You remember in 2007, some of the issues when they use the manual system. Somebody from, I don't know, a constituency that is somewhere here, you find the registered, they're about 1,000 and the results are coming 130. Those are some of the things we are saying. Let's use some of these things, but for the good of this country. And when you are talking about, I again tell you this, when we said as NASA principals are meeting Jubilee, we were ready. I remember NASA presidential candidate was available. The Jubilee presidential candidate was not available. Instead, they sent the deputy. And we said, if it's about both sides, let's all sit, respect one another.
But they are one and the same. But the deputy was
no. What I'm saying, he came very late. Actually, he came very late.
From NASA are concerned to not only envoys and, of course, the IEBC, but also to the public in general. People believe that you're holding the country hostage by walking out of these talks. We do not get a consensus, and we do not get a direction on the way forward with only 22 days to the election.
My personal thinking, let the presidential candidates, yes, be available. Let IEBC meet them. But not about when we have, as NASA, send our candidate, on the other side the candidate is not there. Then again, those are some of the things you're saying.
Our presidential candidate is very busy and he has the powers to delegate. You know, he has a country to run. I know and I appreciate that your presidential candidate does not have mandate and, you know, not a busy office to run. But our presidential candidate is very busy. He has an office to run. And two, The office of the deputy president is mandated by the office of president to represent him.
Yeah, and we're taking a very short break. I'll get your closing remarks when we're back.
You don't want me to.
Very briefly.
Yeah, I'm asking this. When he says the presidential candidate is very busy, what is so busy when she says the country is burning, and then he cannot create time to address some of the issues facing Kenyans? You can see now the attitude with the Jubilee and what they think about it. They don't take Kenya serious. They don't take Kenya serious.
That particular meeting is not about firefighting. It's a meeting to organize things. It's a meeting that can be delegated. It is not a do or die meeting, as Mheshimiwa would like to put it.
In fact, at the end of the day, the solution about this is either both candidates.
And you can imagine, Mary, this is what is probably the scenario in that boardroom, where we see the back and forth between the two sides of the political divide, IEBC caught in the middle and other stakeholders as well, and therefore really no end in sight.
But we cannot expect any less. The point is we're a country divided down the middle. And when you understand this kind of division, you look back into history. What did other countries do? Today Germany is celebrating the unification of both East and West. And when they unified, when the wall came down in '89 and then they went into unification in 1990, they were bringing together people with different political ideologies, different economic backgrounds, different political persuasions, but they did it. And today Germany is one of the most powerful European economies. We can do it. And that's what we're asking as Kenyans. Find a middle ground.
And then this middle ground will be within the confines of the law.
Honorable Jomo, please, just for a minute, let's cross over to the University of Nairobi, where one of the student leaders is speaking. This is following the closure of the institution, following last night's protest. Let's listen.
Comrades Ria! Comrades Tialala! Thank you very much. No questions. No questions. No questions. No questions, please. No comments. Comrades power! Comrades power! Mbivi ashindwe! Mbivi riswa! Mbivi aende! The University of Nairobi has never been in such a condition before, and it will never be in this condition again. We have relieved one Professor Peter Felix Mbivi of his duties. Professor Peter Mbivi has failed. He is using the security situation in the nation to cover up for his failures. The University of Nairobi has dropped in its academic ranking. The University of Nairobi staff are not paid. The University of Nairobi does not have a university council operating. We are in shambles, and the first and only solution is to send Mbivi away. The student union is in Mbivi's bedroom. He kidnapped it, closed his mouth, closed his ears, and took it to his bedroom. Therefore, we want Matiang'i as the education CS. If he cannot remove Mbivi as the vice chancellor, he will go with Mbivi home. Comrades, yesterday we admitted students in the nursing school of nursing. Today you are telling them to go home. Why? Today we only had one operation to resign, to ensure that Mbivi resigns from office. That was the only operation. And even if he closes this university, and opens it on Christmas Day, he will go home on Christmas Day. It is either Mbivi goes and park or parks and go. Mbivi must go. Comrades power! Comrades power! Comrades power! Comrades Ra! Comrades Ria! Comrades Dibim! We know the worst of the worst thing that Professor Mbivi can do is to suspend us. Yes. We are telling him and we are warning him that whether we are suspended or we are not suspended, whether we are expelled or not expelled, we must fight for our rights. It is either Mbivi go home or he will go. It is a must that Mbivi must go home. He rather resign or we will disappoint him and appoint someone. Comrade Tibim! Comrade Ra! Mbivi must go! It is made.
Those are University of Nairobi student leaders calling for the immediate resignation of their Vice Chancellor, Professor Peter Mbivi. They're also calling for the Education Cabinet Secretary Matiang'i to intervene. They are protesting the closure of the university, saying that some students, in fact, reported to school for the very first time, first years, yesterday, and therefore a bit of frustration there from their end, saying that they do not feel adequately represented by their Vice-Chancellor. And we're going back to what Hassan Mugambi said earlier about the protest last week, where the Vice-Chancellor remained mum, where he did not say a thing days after there was accusations of police brutality. I'll get my panel's closing remarks on the state of affairs there at the University of Nairobi. Mary, we're hearing the student leaders saying that the Vice-Chancellor is taking advantage of the security situation in the country to close this institution of higher learning. Do you see any legitimacy in what these students are saying in their frustration, or is this a trickle-down effect, like I had earlier put to you, from the political climate in the country currently?
I think it's a little bit of both. You can understand where they're coming from, and they're very angry. Some have just joined a couple of weeks ago, others are about to do exams, and they don't know how long they're going to be closed down for. Then there's also the issue of student body politics that gets a lot of interference from national politics, and we'd like to see that change. And so, as I stated earlier, we would like to see the University Senate sit down with leaders from the student body across the board, not just Nairobi University, but all national universities, and find a way forward for them to have a formal, platform to agitate their needs. That would my recommendation.
Right, and Peter, last week in a communique from the Vice-Chancellor, to the school's fraternity, because there's a lecturer that was with me in studio and he shared the same with me, he called for the students to refrain from engaging in political protest, and therefore the interference of national politics within these institutions of higher learning's fraternity, and how this is likely to lead to such situations.
In fact, Lillian, if I was President Uhuru Kenyatta, from wherever he is sitting, and I want to really feel sorry if he's that busy, and these are some of the things happening in the country, he should be a very worried man, because these things would happen, may happen in another place, and so forth. I said that it's unfortunate that the Vice-Chancellor's statement was coming even too late, and if you listen to the statement that he read, it is like it's a statement that was written for him by police to read. It was not coming from himself. Because if you're head of an institution and you say it's very sorry that some outsiders came to take advantage of the situation, and you're in charge of an institution, that tells you that the Vice-Chancellor is really in a very difficult situation. Therefore, what I'm saying is that the situation, and if the situation in the country can be addressed as fast as possible, I'm sure some of these things would possibly not be happening. But again, if not addressed, you will still see a lot more happening. And if the person who is supposed to be in charge and sincerely says he's very busy to discuss some of these things, then I can tell you for sure that we are not heading the right direction as a country.
And as we close, Jude, it is unfortunate that there's been utterances there of the security situation in the country. We do not know of any security situation in the country, and therefore when you see an institution of higher learning being closed over such remarks, then is this a cause for concern for us as a nation? The fact that we're seeing institutions of higher learning getting closed down due to the political climate, and due to the fact that we are approaching a presidential re-election.
Lillian,
a presidential election, a repeat of the presidential election.
Lillian, I speak my mother tongue because I was taught, or my mother showed me how to speak that language. This language that is being spoken in the universities, in our learning institutions, is the language that we are teaching them as their leaders. It is a very good example. You had the kind of rhetorics they were having, TB, tiarara, and all that. It's the same kind of language that we are hearing out there in rallies. In fact, you could not have told the difference between our Nasarari and what we have had the university students doing. We are teaching them, or maybe we are learning from them. Some of these things I know we are learning from the kids. Instead of us telling the kids or teaching the kids what to do, we are the ones who are learning from them. So I agree with you that, like President Moi used to say, siasa baya, maisha baya. The siasa that we are having out here is now translating, is running down to our institutions. And I think it was a good move that the University of Nairobi was closed, because we don't have to wait until the whole university is banned for the university administration to take a step. I know it is very sad for NASA because to them the university was a bank for people to go and riot whenever they want to cause riots.
That's an allegation.
It is, yes, it is. But I saw them in Nairobi yesterday, and I could tell that these are university students. They could have come from any university. So I know it is quite a drawback for them, because now they'll have to go further to look for people to come and flood the streets of Nairobi.
By the way, Lillian, these same people can still go to Uhuru Park. There's freedom of association everywhere. You don't have to use the university to do these kind of things. These are students saying that what is happening in this country is not right. And they're expressing this. Why can't leaders listen to them? If they don't listen to them, wait and see.
We are taking a short break. We are at the top of the hour. We are back with more in the next hour. Stay with Citizen Extra.